Welcome into the fourth Mother Box. I am your co-host, Tom Okri. Hello there. Joining from video now officially. This is kind of weird. I got to remember to look up. So you can officially see all of us. You can see me. Hello. I'm calling. Not calling. I'm here from this heat hell in Phoenix. It's 106 degrees. It is hot as hell here. But anyway, joining me as always, the thorn in Lori Lightfoot's side, coming from Chicago, Illinois, Mr. Kyle Cosentino. Kyle, how the hell are you today?
Well, it's a little warm here too. I think it's going to be 90 again today. So.
Oh wow, 90 in the Midwest, Chicago. I mean, it's probably humid as hell, right?
It's not too bad. It's actually quite nice. It's we need this. We definitely need this.
Good. I'm glad to hear. Chicago, although I'll never live there again. Awesome summer city. But
absolutely.
But we're not here to talk about that today. We're here to talk about the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And yes, we're very excited about the debut of Loki this week. So we wanted to talk MCU since we've been hearing some great things about Loki coming from reviews and just showrunners and people saying that this is going to make a huge impact on the MCU. So let's talk about it. You know, we're DC fanboys. Again, this podcast was birthed after the release of Zack Snyder's Justice League. I mean, we're the fourth Mother Box, for God's sake. But you cannot deny the wild success the MCU has had with the comic book and general audiences. So we're going to talk MCU, but first, man, Kyle, there's been a ton of news this week. Just DC, a little bit of Marvel, and some Star Wars and theme park news. So let's blast through this because we've got a lot to talk about. So let's start with DC. So you and I were talking about this, Kyle. Andy Muschietti or Muschietti, I don't know. You're the Italian one out of the two of us. I don't know how you pronounce that. But the Flash director, he teased Michael Keaton's bat symbol on Instagram with a spot of blood just on the right-hand side, kind of right up on the chest. So we know this movie's going to be about Flashpoint, but did that tip the scales and kind of make it a doomsday clock storyline? Could we possibly see the Watchmen in this movie? What do you think, Kyle?
I don't know. It's been real. I think it's real tight-lipped, and I think it's great that they're really reaching into the past and bringing back Michael Keaton's Batman. And I feel like he's a fan favorite, especially after the god-awful Batmans that came after him, with the exception of obviously Christian Bale and Affleck. But again, we don't really count those as Batman films. Val Kilmer, George Clooney, that didn't really happen.
No, those didn't happen. But this Flash film, man, is really picking up my interest. And I was already hugely excited to go into it to begin with, just because it's another DC movie, even though it's not. I mean, it should be in the Snyderverse, but I digress. But Doomsday Clock. This is going to be an interesting one to keep an eye on, and I can't wait. But so let's talk about typically, Kyle, you and I will dog on the CW and the Arrowverse universe of what's out there for DC. So if anyone ever calls us out for being too much DC fanboys, just know I hate the CW Arrowverse. Outside of Superman and Lois, of course. That's arguably the best thing going for the CW Arrowverse right now at this time. This is exactly the type of that I love. That's why I connect with Henry Cavill so much. But why are they doing this with this iteration of Superman and Superman and Lois? They're making it very Snyder-esque, if I'm allowed to say that. Why can't it be Henry's Superman? What's the deal? But what also makes Superman and Lois work so well? And hey, how about that big reveal of Steel recently, Kyle? What'd you think of all that?
I didn't actually see that coming. When he first came on the scene and he said his name was Lex Luthor, I thought, okay, this is another Lex Luthor. But I think somewhere in the episode, like, I don't know when it was, but I'm like, could he possibly be Steel? And I liked that reveal. I thought that was a cool, cool reveal in the episode where he like calls the hammer and he basically kicks the crap out of Superman. But I want to say is like what's really working about this show is that I think the episode length in the season is shorter. And it's interesting that they're debuting this because it seems like all the CW shows are on their way out. My guess would be is that they are moving it to HBO Max with all the other shows. But what I like about this one in particular is that it's starting off with good character development, and it's really focusing on the family life of, Clark Kent and Lois Lane and his two kids, and you get really invested real quickly. And given my experience with the other CW shows, I wouldn't have thought that they would have done that. I think that it's apparent that they're putting a little bit more into this show, a lot more writing, because the other shows there's really good things that came out of the other shows in the beginning, but that somewhere along the line they just completely got watered down.
You're
So
right. Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. And I hate to see what's happening to the Flash because that series started off so well. I mean, it was a great
yeah,
follow up to Arrow. Supergirl, you and I were talking about the viewership of Supergirl this week too. That even started out with a bang, and then it just plots.
it was the highest. It was the highest watched episode of the CW, the Arrowverse, with 13 million viewers of that Supergirl pilot. And it was when it was on CBS too. So they just should have kept it there.
Right? It should have kept it there with the stereotypical old audience that tunes into CBS. Maybe they like Supergirl, but anyway. But this is good. This is refreshing to see out of the CW characters. But then again, to your point, these shows started off with a bang. So let's hope Superman and Lois can keep it up. Let's just hope they keep it up. So moving on, back to DC properties, Black Adam again. There's lots of news coming out about that. Danny Garcia, who's a producer for Black Adam and coincidentally The Rock's ex-wife, current business partner, explained that they want to do many, 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 many movies in the DC universe. That is, she said they're excited about their long-term relationship with DC and this property. This is really excellent news, if you ask me. I love having someone as ambitious and tenacious as The Rock helming my favorite comic book properties when it comes to their movies. And the rumor has it he's big on Zack Snyder, big on Henry, big on that universe. And Zack did say this week, it was either another podcast or online somewhere, that he could totally see Dwayne Johnson's Black Adam fit into his universe, and he absolutely could. So this is promising, Kyle. I don't know what you think about this.
Yeah, we've touched a little bit upon this, and I think it's great that it seems like we're getting a lot of news every week, and this is wonderful. And I think, again, Black Adam is really shaping up to be something that's really interesting to me personally, especially when I really wasn't super into Black Adam in the past. And I think The Rock is really going to bring that character to life. So I'm really looking forward to seeing his vision. And maybe this might be a different role for him because The Rock, traditionally, he's never the heel. I mean, I think they tried that stint in WWE and it made it work for a little while, but even then, it's hard to hate The Rock. So
It is. It's true. And it worked gloriously in the WWE. He was one of the best heels before he just got too popular for his own good.
yeah,
But
well, I think it'll be definitely. I could see him being a more complicated, kind of like anti-hero character. And my knowledge again at Black Adam is it's close to nothing. So
yeah, check out. HBO Max is loaded with animated features. Just like I mentioned before. At least
yeah, I saw
mentioned it.
that. It really doesn't go because that's like a couple different stories into one. It's not
Right.
just one story, but it was good nevertheless,
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah. I would. But you're right. There's a lot more into Black Adam there, and
Yeah.
we could always dive deeper. But speaking of the Shazam universe, leaked photos of Zachary Levi's new suit, which looks pretty sweet if you ask me. It looks more realistic. They peeked on the internet again, just like the last Shazam movie. He had his costume revealed early. So whoever is running security for David Sandberg in the Shazam movie should really second guess their career choice. But and then David Sandberg, the director of Shazam 2, Fury of the Gods, just kind of had no choice. And that's when they released a teaser of Billy Baston in the suit. It was really dark, and he cracked a joke, very Shazam-like, but it was the first thing we got to see of Shazam 2. So excited about it. I don't know about you, Kyle, but I'm really looking forward to this, and again, seeing how this might connect to the Black Adam universe too.
Yeah, I think it's nice to see something that's a little bit more lighthearted. And Shazam, the first one, I didn't really know a lot about Shazam, and I didn't know there was like more than one. You know what I mean? I didn't know about like the Shazam family that he had. But that was such a cool reveal at the end. I'm glad that I didn't get that spoiled by anybody. I know they kind of spoiled that and like they came out with the movie and it was out in the theaters for a few weeks, but then they just like dropped another trailer of that out of nowhere, and then they like kind of spoiled that ending. And I'm like, and it's kind of up there like, trailers shouldn't give away that much. It's like Batman vs Superman. How great would have that been if we didn't know about Doomsday at the end? They put that in the trailer, and it just kind of like, I wish you wouldn't have done that, but it was still great nevertheless.
Oh, still epic nonetheless. But you're right. I always, if I had one criticism about the marketing for that movie, it was maybe a little too much. But damn near perfection. That's a cult classic. So speaking of the opposite of perfections in cult classics, more incompetence from Warner Brothers. Um, two things on Warner Brothers here, real quick, because I don't want to give them the time of the day, except for saying that the fact that they pissed me the fuck off. They reportedly didn't understand. So we're talking about the Snyder Cut of Justice League. They reportedly didn't understand the Flash's time travel in the Snyder Cut. I'm like, are you kidding me? Talk about how out of touch the studio can be when one of the biggest properties for their movies with DC just not understanding really the most pivotal part of the movie. You have these DC characters, the Flash. If you know the Flash, you should know he'd be able to travel back in time. I understood the scene, Kyle. I don't know about you understanding the scene with time travel right at first, but this is more incompetence from Warner Brothers. And them and Discovery have announced their official name this week. And let's hope the poor name in nostalgic design isn't a sign that the Snyderverse will not be restored, but they're now known as Warner Brothers Discovery. Thank you very much. Must have taken a group of 10 or more bright minds to come up with that one for that merger. WBD comes to mind. You could have easily called it WBD, Warner Brothers Discovery. I don't know. I don't get paid to do that, but yeah, they didn't understand the Flash's time travel, Kyle. Plus, they merged together for a stupid name.
If they didn't understand the time travel, like that drives me crazy. I'm like, they run the CW, so like, were they not involved in the Flash for the past 7-8 years? I mean, like, where were they? Right. And I feel like you almost kind of like don't need to explain it. It's kind of like Batman and parents' death. Like, you don't. I think Batman vs Superman did it really well. They didn't really gloss over it. They just like threw it in there in the intro, and we all got it. We all knew what it is. So, right. Flash. If you've seen any episode of the Flash, you kind of like you get the gist of that. So,
right.
Anyway.
Yeah. So last bit on DC for this part until we talk about theme parks, and I might go on a mini rant about that. But more Snyder news. He said on another podcast that Warner Brothers obviously would not let him not just make Justice League 2 and 3, but they wouldn't let him make a third part to 300, a Sucker Punch director's cut, an Atom movie. I would have loved to have seen a movie of Atom that would have been based on the character that we saw in Snyder's Justice League, who had a lot of interaction with the Silas Stone. Army of the Dead 1 and 2, which is now on Netflix anyway. So thank you very much, Warner Brothers. What was the number, Kyle? Was it 72 million?
Yeah, it's like the highest viewed watched movie of all time on Netflix or something like that.
Yeah, Army of the Dead slayed, and I still haven't seen it, so it's going to be 72 million and one. But you saw it and you said it was a fun time, right?
Yeah, I love horror movies. Like, I could probably do a whole like podcast about horror movies if I wanted to. And I would say this is a fun film. And it's nothing like probably you haven't seen before, but with Dave Bautista as like kind of the leading actor, It
Oh,
makes it a cool kind of film, and he takes a little bit of a different approach to, the post-zombie world apocalypse. But I thought it was a fun film, not like going to be like your A-listing classic horror movie of all time, but still a good watch, definitely.
good. Yeah, I can't wait to carve out a couple of hours just to sit down and just inhale that all in. Definitely. All right, so a little bit of Marvel news. Black Widow is coming out next month. Scarlett Johansson.
Finally,
Yeah, finally, right? I mean, and this is what I was going to mention, and maybe this is why Scarlett Johansson made these comments about feeling extremely stressful, which she said in the June issue of Total Film, citing the predecessing movies like Endgame and Infinity War that came before uh, Black Widow's movie. She's just feeling a lot of stress, feeling, just I think the weight of the world on her shoulders because this is the first MCU flick in 2 years. I think the last one we had was Spider-Man: Far From Home. No, yeah, Spider-Man. No, Spider-Man: Far From Home's coming up. What was the second one? No Way Home, right?
Far From Home was came right after Endgame, and that was
Okay,
it.
okay,
And,
okay.
and then it was WandaVision. That's
Yes. Well, WandaVision kind of counts on TV, but anyway, the last actual movie was the second Spider-Man flick. So she's feeling a lot of weight on her world on her shoulders, or the weight of the world on her shoulders with this movie coming out. I believe her comments, even though she claims it's extremely stressful, it's like you've been Black Widow for 10 plus years. Just about. I'm not an actor, so or an actress. I don't know what kind of stress comes when you're putting on this sort of facade and taking on a different persona. But you've mentioned this before, Kyle. Like the nerddom, the fandom gets really crazy about these things. So I think she's feeling the heat being the first movie in 2 years. This movie is set in a pivotal time for the MCU. It's set between Civil War and Infinity War. I suppose I could see how it's a stressful undertaking, albeit now it's the first, you know, time we get to see Taskmaster, which I'm excited to see. But again, I'm going into Black Widow with not a lot of expectations because we know this hero's outcome already, which happened in Endgame. But I'd love to see her like reconnect with Captain America before what we see of them in Infinity War.
Yeah, I've heard rumors that even Robert Downey Jr. is going to be in there and like make a cameo.
Really?
I feel like the film itself kind of feels out of place a bit. I just think like, well, why didn't they do this a long time ago? How I feel like I get why they're doing it after Endgame, but you can almost say that it would have had just as much weight before Endgame too. Would have made
Oh,
that her death a lot sweeter.
yes.
Kind of after the fact. So it just seems weird to me, but I guess it is what it is.
Totally agreed. But alas, I'm still like without the expectations like I would have on Endgame or Infinity War. Looking forward to it. So, IGN reported recently, moving it along to the Sony world of Marvel. The Sony executive Sanford Pantic stated there's actually a plan to connect Sony's Spider-Man universe to the MCU. And the most important part, I think, of what he said specifically was, I think when No Way Home comes out, even more will be revealed. So I have a rather big assumption and just guess here, or maybe it's optimism, but I think the Venom universe and MCU's Spider-Man, Tom Holland's Spider-Man, are going to clash eventually, thanks to this multiverse mix-up with the second Doctor Strange movie coming out, plus No Way Home eventually coming out later this year. So, wow, just thinking about that Venom in a Spider-Man universe, not like the crappy one that we got from Eric Foreman from that 70s show, like this would be legit.
I think the good thing is that they played their cards right here. Whereas like they cast Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man, and he was a bit older, and like he had a 10-year run. He's getting older, so he's probably not going to be able to go that much longer. But they cast Tom Holland, I think, when he was like 19 or 20, and so he's got some time to really explore this role. I mean, he could do a trilogy of Spider-Man films, but then he could do other stuff. Like if he shows up in a Venom movie or Morbius or something like that, or even Blade. I mean, um, I think it's cool too because he really loves the character of Spider-Man. Who wouldn't? You know what I mean? Like, who wouldn't want to play that character for forever? I mean, I know I would.
Hell yeah. Heck yeah. I'm looking forward to it. They hit that recent agreement, Sony and the MCU, uh, to see more Spider-Man. Remember that hashtag Save Spider-Man nonsense. But anyway, exciting things to come in the Spider-Man universe. It's a great time to be a Spider-Man fan, and both you and I, Spider-Man's our favorite Marvel character. So definitely looking forward to that. So more Marvel MCU world news, especially specifically for Disney Plus, but Moon Knight. We talked a little bit about Moon Knight not that long ago, but Oscar Isaac of obviously Star Wars and X-Men Apocalypse um, teased Moonlight last week. Seems to be a very, very interesting Marvel character that we have not seen much about. Kylie, I believe you know a little bit more about Moon Knight than I. Are we excited about this?
I know very little. I've seen him in a few episodes. Like I've seen him in like an animated Spider-Man episode, and I think there was another episode that I've seen him in. But he's really weird. He's like kind of schizo. He's like schizophrenia, I believe, and he believes he gets the powers from the moon. So he talks really weird and out there. So I don't know if this is going to be like more of a serious or more comedy based, but um, I don't know. Again, I just go back to the fact that Marvel has just done such a good job of taking really obscure characters and bringing them to life. So I definitely will be open to whatever they decide to do with Moon Knight.
Yeah, and I'm a big fan of Oscar Isaac. I loved his portrayal of Apocalypse and X-Men Apocalypse, and of course Poe Dameron. And
He hated that role though in Apocalypse.
did he really?
Oh, if you ever listen to the interview with him, he talks about how the makeup and the suit were just excruciatingly painful and like an awful, miserable experience. It
Really?
was bad. Even Jennifer Lawrence talked about her experience too. She had like an allergic reaction to the paint for Mystique. And so like doing that for her was a real visceral experience. You could even see in Dark Phoenix where she really didn't do that. The Mystique look very often, like she was covered up most of the time, and
I
it's
noticed
because
that.
of that.
Interesting. I mean, that has to make a lot of sense. I mean, I can only imagine what it's like to have body paint literally everywhere if you're playing Mystique
Yeah,
or Apocalypse
give her
too.
credit.
Yeah, I definitely give him credit, but we're looking forward to Moon Knight. I could definitely say that. So, some more Marvel news and a little bit of mixture of theme park news. But Avengers Campus, it finally opened. What's today? The 6th. It opened 2 days ago, June 4th. And big shocker, Kyle, but people are negative about Avengers Campus. They're saying there's not enough to do. They're saying the Spider-Man web slingers is underwhelming. They're saying this. They're saying that. They're saying there should be more to do. It should have opened when the Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout opened, when that rethemed the Hollywood Tower of Terror Hotel. People are saying somebody saw the Steve Rogers Captain America character in Avengers Campus and bitched about it that it wasn't Sam Wilson's Captain America. Yet during the media event, Anthony Mackie literally handed the freaking shield to the Sam Wilson Captain America on stage. So
You know what the coolest thing about that park is that Disney developed this dummy, and I don't know if I've actually seen this. I think it was in Imagineering where they talked about
yep,
that dummy, where it's just like they designed it to like land, like really. I don't even know how the physics of it, but it's actually a dummy dressed up as Spider-Man, swinging and like flying through the air and like landing perfectly. Probably it looks like inside a building,
yeah,
but when I saw that, I was like, that is just, it's Disney's ability to really push the boundaries of engineering and really come out with stuff that just blows you away. I think that's so amazing. And I can't believe people bitch about that. Like, when we were growing up, Disney never like expanded their parks, I felt like. But now in the past 5, 6 years, I mean, how much have they expanded? And it's continuing to just trailblaze. So people need to shut the fuck up.
I agree. Take what you like, and there's people even bitching about Bugs Land too. And I remember when I told Courtney this. that people were upset that Bugs Land was gone. She's like, really? There's nothing to do there. And it's very much I mean, for me, I've got no kids, but Bugs Land was very much a kids park. You could easily have gotten rid of Bugs Land. I mean, come on. That's replacing one intellectual property for another. You don't miss a Bugs Land. You're just underwhelmed because your life sucks. Okay, that's why you hate Avengers Campus. And you know, if you hate Avengers Campus, being in California, fly to Florida to Universal Studios Orlando and go to Islands of Adventure and see the Marvel characters there. You know, do you prefer that? You know, in Kyle, I don't know if you knew this, but we're not going to see Avengers Campus in Disney Hollywood Studios because Universal Orlando has the Islands of Adventure superhero section with all the Marvel characters. It's like written in the contract that Florida cannot have it.
That's bullshit.
You know what's even more bullshit? And I kind of gave you a little bit of a preview, but that Islands of Adventure was originally supposed to be DC superheroes.
They should just do that. Like swap it out, put some new paint on there, make the Spider-Man ride like the Batman ride. I don't know. Like they could do that.
Oh yeah. Do you want to get more pissed off? Do you want some details about what we could have had?
Let's hear it.
Yeah,
let's hear it.
So we were supposed to get the DC Superhero Land, and as you know, for any longtime fans of the DC comic book company, it's like catnip to us, right? To get these characters in a theme park. Now, I'm not talking about fucking Six Flags, okay? I hate the fact that Batman and Superman and all that's in Six Flags because I've outgrown Six Flags. It was a big thing to me maybe as a teenager, and our buddy Mike, who listens to this podcast regularly, you know, he's a big fan of Six Flags. I don't think he's been recently. You know, we went a lot as kids, but that's when it kind of meant a lot to us then. It's, you know, to me, you know, Disney Universal just does it better. So I hate that that's where they reside. But the land was supposed to be split into two different distinctive lands. Like the superhero, where Islands of Adventure is now, we were going to get Metropolis, home of Superman, and then a dark and gritty Gotham City, where obviously Batman.
Oh, what the fuck?
I know. There's more. The former was going to be headlined by a motion simulator Spider-Man ride housed inside a show building designed to look like the Daily Planet, which is oddly, very specifically similar to what the Spider-Man ride is kind of sitting at right now at Islands of Adventure. So meanwhile, Gotham, and this part gets me the most because this sounds so fun. Gotham was headlined by a massive dual track roller, or was going to be headlined by a massive dual track roller coaster themed to an aerial assault dogfight between Batman and the Penguin. Guests would have been able to choose which track, either the Batwing or the Penguin. So they either get to choose what side, Batman or the Penguin.
Wow.
It would explore a highly detailed Batcave or Penguin's lair queue prior to boarding, depending on which one you picked. This area was also penciled to feature a Joker's Madhouse coaster with a false finish and a Batman-themed water stunt show. In addition, there would be numerous shops and restaurants themed to other supporting DC characters.
What a shame.
What a shame is right. And all of this because of money, because Warner Brothers and Universal couldn't come to an agreement. You know, Universal was originally offering Warner Brothers, God, I hate them, 6% royalty fee to use the company's DC and Looney Tune characters for the planned park. You know, don't forget, Looney Tune would have been there too. That's why they're at Six Flags. Warner Brothers was like, fuck that, and they wanted 10%. And the two companies just, even though they eventually, Warner Brothers offered a compromise of 8%, the Universal executive was already just kind of torn or jaded, I guess. And he responded to this offer with we don't need your effing characters. And suffice to say, this was the end of the DC world in Universal, and the rest is history. So it's, you know, as we kind of transition from Marvel into theme park and Star Wars news, it's, you know, we love DC so much, it hurts to hear that kind of stuff as that news kind of resurfaced recently. And thank you to Brad my buddy Brad of Jedi Talk out there in Orlando for cluing me into this, that DC would have originally had it, because I just made the joke to him over text. I said Universal should just sell their rights, or just let Disney do their thing with Marvel, and just
Yeah.
rebrand Islands of Adventure all DC. Um,
You know, that might happen though in the future. I mean, look what happened with Spider-Man. I mean, they made it happen, and I don't think it would really take a lot to retheme that area of the park. I mean, let's be honest, it really wouldn't, because it's not that big. It's really not, and that's been there for a while. And I feel like Marvel is Disney's thing, and offer something new. And plus they have Harry Potter. I mean, come on, like you can't have Harry Potter and Marvel. Get the fuck out of here. Have some diversity. Get some DC in there.
that's
You
right.
know, it's confusing and weird. I think that's the bottom line.
Yeah, yeah. This is our call to you, Universal. Just ditch Marvel. You're not taking a loss. You're upgrading. You're upgrading to the because people, yeah, God, I mean, people want to see a real life Gotham City, and there's the Hall of Justice that exists in Abu Dhabi, but I don't know about you, Kyle. I'm not going to Abu Dhabi anytime soon.
Yeah, they could bring that here, and maybe Universal can make another park. I don't know. Maybe somebody can make another park or something like that. But whatever the case is, we need an upgrade from Six Flags, because Six Flags is not what it used to be. And I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. Anyway, okay, moving on to some Star Wars. John Boyega, who's Finn, said in an interview in 2020 that's recently resurfaced for some reason, but here we go. He'd returned to the franchise in 30 years, so similar to what like Luke did, Han Solo, or Luke and Han Solo did. Essentially, would play like an older Finn, I assume. Um, More main Star Wars episodes are just inevitable, right? And he could easily reprise the role, like I said, just like Leia, Luke, Han did. Should there have been more, Kyle, to Finn's story in Star Wars, do you think? I know John Boyega's kind of publicly come out and bashed Star Wars a little bit post the film coming out, and he's kind of pissed the fandom off a little bit here and there. And to be quite honest with you, I thought in The Force Awakens, after we saw it, there was going to be more to Finn. It's obvious that he's Force sensitive thanks to Episode 9, but I thought he was going to kind of go down the Jedi path, especially when he was holding Luke's and the popular Skywalker saber in Episode 7. So, should there have been more to Finn's story, do you think?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think each of those three characters, Finn, Poe, and Rey. I mean, I think the recent Star Wars movies was more about Rey's story than anything.
Right.
And you could do like what Disney does with Marvel, and just make like the TV series event, like they're doing with like WandaVision and Falcon and Winter Soldier. Make a TV series about Finn. Make one about Poe. I think there's definitely stories there, and I would certainly watch that. I mean, it would really write itself. I think it would be a good. I don't see why they wouldn't do that.
I mean, right now they could do a Finn and Poe. They're both uh, leading the Resistance Army, or the Rebellion Resistance, whatever you want to call
Yeah,
it. They're both generals after Princess Leia died, so obviously you could take off from there, because Rey's probably separated from them outside of maybe keeping in touch. But yeah, yeah, let's see more. Let's see more from those two characters. So moving along, more Star Wars. The Bad Batch. Spoiler alert to anybody who hasn't seen episodes 5 or 6 yet. I don't know if you're keeping up with the Bad Batch, but real quick, Kyle, they are connecting a lot in this series to the Star Wars universe. In episode 5, the Bad Batch group had to go. They basically took a bounty to make some money, to make some credits, to get some information. Oh no, it wasn't even credits. They were doing it to get some information from a basically a bounty hunter lead, somebody who pays them to go get the bounties. And their job was to go rescue Muki, I think it was Muki or Muki. Muchi. I'm sorry, Muchi. That's right. It was Muchi. I can't believe I was saying it wrong. They were trying to get Muchi, who they thought was a little kid. Long story short, turned out to be an adolescent Rancor. And what Rancors are, if you don't know the Star Wars universe, think back to Episode 6 of Star Wars when Luke goes to Jabba's palace and then he gets dropped into the pit below. The beast that he had to essentially fight off and kill is a Rancor. Kyle, I think you and I know a few Rancors from Chicago.
I was just gonna bring that up.
Um,
That's where they originate from. This is like their hometown is Chicago.
there you go. Rancors are from Chicago, so you heard it here first on the Fourth Mother Box podcast. And at the end of episode 6 that I just watched on Friday, there was a cliffhanger at the end. Two smugglers who we saw in season 7 of the Clone Wars were talking to somebody and gave the location away of the Bad Batch. And you couldn't see who they're talking to. You just kind of saw this person. It looked like they might have been wearing a robe. Spoiler alert, I think it's Ahsoka, but I could be wrong. We'll see. But yeah, Bad Batch is good. Bad Batch is good. It connects a lot. But if you're not watching it now, I'd save it and binge it. So anyway, not theme park related, but Disney related. Cruella was brilliant. Have you seen this yet, Kyle?
I have not, but I keep hearing really good things. I want to see it though.
Yeah, Emma Stone and Emma Thompson stole the show. The dog's in there. Wink is probably my favorite. I won't go too deep into it, but it's excellent. It was so much better than I anticipated, and I didn't anticipate much, but excellent movie. So, speaking of excellent things and franchises that are upcoming, Indiana Jones 5 begins production, and Kyle, this is your wheelhouse. So I want to turn it over to you. What are you excited about most out of Indiana Jones 5?
Well, I feel like Indiana Jones kind of always gets put on the back burner, and this is very true, not only with the movies but even the video games too. I mean, they released a million Star Wars video games, but they really it's very rare when we get an Indiana Jones game, and when they put one out, it's usually like underdeveloped, and so they're actually coming out with a new one, Indiana Jones game too. That's gonna probably we might see some more about that in the next coming weeks because there's like a video game conference coming up. But back to the movies, yeah, E3. Back to the movies. People will make a lot of comments about, oh, Harrison Ford is too old. He's 80 years old, but you know, I don't know. I mean, they got a good director, the James Mangold, who did Logan, and Old Man Logan storyline. That was a great movie. And Harrison Ford is still in really great shape. And I think he's still even. They talk about him even still having a 6-pack, being 80 years old. So, whatever the case is, I feel like if Harrison Ford feels like he can do it, and there's a good story there, I'm going to give it a chance. And I actually did like Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. I know it gets a lot of flack, but I think this is a beloved character, and it certainly wasn't the Last Crusade, but still a good movie.
Yeah, I'm because of your hype in it, and like you said, Indiana Jones to you is like Star Wars is to me. So I've never sat down and actually binged through them, so I'm gonna do that. So we can definitely sit down and have an episode where we talk about Indiana Jones. I'll binge it.
Absolutely.
I'll binge it and we'll get ready because this is coming out next year, right?
It was actually supposed to come out in 2019. That's when it was slated. It was like The Flash, and then again, it's like it got pushed back, and now I think it was supposed to come out this year, but then it got pushed back again. So 2022, I think it's July 2022 is when it's officially going to release. Okay. But they got a good cast in there so far. So.
All right. I'm looking forward to it. Just based on what you've told me, I'm excited. So I can't wait to catch up. Last bit of theme park news as we move it along. Universal Studios Orlando completely ditched masks. We're returning to normalcy if you're fully vaccinated, of course. We're excited to return to normalcy, although it has sparked some animosity amongst the guests. And this segues completely into what this ginger is going to snap about today. So, Kyle, step aside for a second. I'm going to snap on the animosity that's growing in the theme parks. Just slow your roll returning guests to Walt Disney World and Disneyland and Universal Parks. There's way too much animosity to allow us to turn to normal, okay? But let me set the stage. The dust is settling, nature is healing, people are getting vaccines, and COVID-19 cases are plummeting in the states across the great nation in these states, both red and blue states, okay? Put your damn politics aside. I mean, look at just last week, and you can tell this is how nature is healing. Southwest Airlines had to stop selling booze because of violent passenger interactions.
Wow.
Like I said, Kyle, nature is healing. Um, Before you know it, this animosity that I just talked about, that everybody's feeling, yes, it's animosity for being cooped up for a year and a half, being told to hate each other on TV, and multiple times of feeling hopeless. Yeah, that kind of animosity. But this animosity is going to make its way into our beloved theme parks, and I think it already has. Um, you, you see tweet after tweet in post after post about guests yelling at them about the mask policy, both ways. Like people for the mask policy and anti-mask people making fun of each other. And it's only a matter of time before the queen of all Karens challenges a cast member for stepping in because another guest had his head deep down in a funnel cake from the American Adventure and fell into Karen's stroller. Yeah, getting powdered sugar all over her 72-month-year-old child. And I said 72-month-year-old child. That's how the Karen tells people her kid's age. Karen fiercely, in a fit of rage, calls out Chad, the funnel cake eater. Chad was not about to strike a lady, so he was looking for his wife, also named Karen, who was nowhere to be found because she was stuck in the frozen ride vehicle at the ride's finish. This is why it's been down for 35 minutes, because Karen is stuck in the ride. Look, I can go on and on and on about the kinds of scenarios that are ahead this summer at Walt Disney World in Florida, Disneyland, California, and the Universal Studio theme parks, okay? Situations like that are coming, people, okay? But it's up to us. Calm your fucking roll. It's up to us to calmly and respectfully ask ourselves and all of America to calm the fuck down. Love thy neighbor and get the piss out of my way because we don't have time for your reindeer games. America and theme parks are back, and I'm moving to Florida to piss a bunch of all y'all off. Okay? I'm showing up respectful, but I'm showing up following the rules. And if you don't like it, just go. You don't have to go to these theme parks, okay? Regardless if you like the rules that they make or don't like the rules. Because the moment they took the mask policy away, people were crying about it, okay? But these are the same people that were fucking crying about the masks in the first place, saying you hated wearing them. So make up your goddamn mind and take that animosity out on your husband like you normally do, Karen. I've got lightsabers to buy, okay? Go be a burden on somebody else at public space so we don't have to interact with you because work tells them that they have to for a paycheck, okay? We simply have no room for your nonsense in 2021 and beyond, okay? Get out of my theme parks with that shit. Life is too short. All right. How about we talk about MCU, Kyle? Does that sound good?
Let's talk about it.
All right. Let's just get this out of the way, right? Okay. Why the heck is the Marvel Cinematic Universe so gosh darn successful? What makes it appeal to everyone, Kyle?
Well, Marvel is really created a world that's really for everyone. Whereas DC movies are more dark and serious, Marvel is more lighthearted and fun. And I've said this before, but I think they really shine by taking obscure Marvel characters and bringing them to life. I mean, who really knew who Doctor Strange was, or the Guardians of the Galaxy, for that matter? And now these are beloved names. They're kind of like household names at this point. So I think everybody can really find a character they can connect with in this massive world that they built. And they also did something I don't feel like any other franchise has ever done before. They connected 22 movies to a massive story arc. I mean, if you really took the time to watch all these films and get to Infinity War and Endgame, that was a massive, massive payoff. And I think it was all really done brilliantly.
Oh, you nailed it on the head. I mean, first and foremost, they struck when the iron was hot, and they had a clear vision for what the future of not only comic book movies could and should look like, but really all of cinema. Think of all the films that have adapted mid-credit scenes or post-credit scenes because Marvel made it popular to do again. It made people rethink staying through the credits, and it made the humor and the scientific stuff pretty good bedfellows, right? The sci-fi and the humor are pretty good bedfellows now. You can almost do it simultaneously. They took the comic out of the comic book and really landed on it, and I give them shit for that sometimes, but it works. As long as it doesn't kill the movie. And most importantly, the MCU really is hit home on their comic portrayal and delivery. Now, sure, the MCU has its limitations with their characters. You know, Spider-Man was almost impossible for them to get right, let alone the super popular X-Men, who we've never seen in the MCU. We've seen mutants. You know, that's what Wanda and Quicksilver were supposed to be, but they call them miracles instead in the terrible Age of Ultron. But much like the Dark Knight series, Kevin Feige and the MCU have done an auspicious job of just connecting kids, adults, general audiences together with the nerddom. You might hate me for saying this, but Disney, everybody, is a large reason for this success. They were able to fund this epic universe beyond Iron Man and the Incredible Hulk movies that made these unique superhero team ups just epic and a true, like you said before, Kyle, this was a lifetime event. You know, Endgame was a lifetime event for a lot of people. And if you just search on YouTube, go out there, look for audience reactions to not just trailers, but the Avengers Assemble scene in Endgame, and people just lose their mind. Kyle and I saw Endgame together at Disney Springs, Walt Disney World, which is freaking awesome. And our theater was just as much connected to that moment. Just as much as we were. I mean, we didn't stand up and give them a standing ovation or cry or anything like that, but it was very much a scene. It was a lifetime event. And admittedly, for me, I got into the Avengers movies later than most. Like I didn't rush to go see Iron Man like everybody did. I got into them a little bit later, probably because my DC bias, but glad I did get into them. But once I did, I was fully invested with the rest, and it's cheesy enough, to smile. These movies are funny enough to laugh, wholesome enough to watch with the family, and edgy enough for nerds not to really bitch and complain too much on the internet. And I say too much because they still bitch. I give the MCU a wonderful, wonderful, and prosperous run, a standing ovation. Terrific run. Because, and I'm not trying to downgrade anything, but I think darker days are ahead for the MCU. How does it get better than really what we've had already?
I don't really think it does.
Right? How do you? I mean, you could look at the route that they're taking the MCU now, and I might be tapping into one of our other topics, but the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, now Captain America and the Winter Soldier. Loki's probably going to change everything, or make us rethink how we look at the universe, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, that is. WandaVision, really, I still don't know why Doctor Strange didn't show up in WandaVision, but that is what it is. We've been presented with what the future looks like so far, and I feel like Falcon and the Winter Soldier gave us the most painted picture of what the MCU is trying to do. Hydra's still around. Madam Hydra showed up. She could put the Dark Avengers together. There's still the John Walker storyline. If they're teamed up with a bunch of people who want to take over the world, are there new Avengers coming? But like we said, I don't think you could top the Infinity War series against Thanos. Who's out there still villain-wise, Kyle, that could really pose a threat to, Marvel?
Yeah, I don't really know. I mean, I think it would be interesting to see like the MCU's version of Magneto, and more importantly, somebody needs to fix Doctor Doom. We need to see Doctor Doom, and he needs to be the great villain that we all know that he is, that was clearly fucked up twice in the movies in the past. Might be cool to see Galactus as well. I mean, that could be like a Thanos level type of threat. But again, would it be interesting to see some of these characters come to screen when, we've had, what is it, 11 years now of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, where a lot of the actors are either on their way out or, I don't know, or have left already. Even Dave Bautista said recently that he's done with Drax because he's 54, and the whole shirt off thing is becoming a lot harder for him, which makes sense. I mean, to keep that up is pretty difficult. So Yeah, and maybe we're tapping into our other topic for today, later on. But maybe even rebooting it altogether might not be the worst idea either.
That's a pretty good preview to that when we talk about the future. But you were mentioning the actors' names like getting up there, right? Like the Robert Downey Jr.'s and the Dave Bautista's. Um, the you know when you think MCU, you think these iconic characters, and it's really hard for me to think of Tony Stark without thinking of Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah.
So let's talk about casting the perfect roles for these, like RDJ, you know, Chris Hemsworth, Chris Evans, um, you know, have any fallen flat on the casting, and would you essentially recast ever? For me, Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark, it just goes down as the best casting in the MCU. Essentially, out of all the main Avengers, they nailed it for every
Yeah.
single of them Avengers, except for Mark Ruffalo. I just want to put that out there because I do miss Ed Norton, even though we got one film out of him. I do miss Ed Norton as the Hulk and Bruce Banner. Kevin Feige said the actor didn't embrace, he said Norton didn't embrace the creativity and collaboration needed for the role. Okay. But Mark Ruffalo's passive aggressive nature does. Like, Paul Blart would make a better Bruce Banner than Mark Ruffalo. um, Brie Larson, okay, speaking of, and I hate saying this, but to me, she has the personality of a carpet sample. Okay, it just turns me off as, and she just turns me off as Captain Marvel. And I'm putting this out there on the internet, on this podcast, to be a better person, a better comic fan, because I'm going to challenge myself to read some of her comics so I can understand the character better and obtain further evidence of her terrible misrepresentation of the character. So I'm going to put work into that. Is this why they involved Nick Fury in her movies? Because they're so uninteresting. Sam Jackson, by the way, perfect choice for Nick Fury. And the character that he made Nick Fury out to be really reinvented the role, reinventing an iconic leader of S.H.I.E.L.D., an iconic leader, partner of the Avengers. I would also recast Mary Jane Watson to be a redhead. I don't give a crap if they keep Zendaya. Just give her a fucking red wig, okay? Misrepresenting gingers, damn it. And I just want that hashtag Ginger Revolution to return. So that's where I'm at on perfect casting.
But is she really MJ? Because in the movies, she said that her name is Michelle, and there's actually some speculation that Marvel can't really use everything from the Spider-Man universe because of whatever deal Sony has. So this is where you didn't really hear about Uncle Ben, or you don't get your traditional castings, or like some of the main parts of that story are just missing. So I don't know, but. I would say too that my recast would be Mark Ruffalo
Yeah.
as the Hulk, and I feel like, and I've said this before, they've completely mishandled the Hulk from the beginning. I think when we saw him in Avengers, he was great; it was perfect. But after that, well, even in Ultron, he was great too. I liked him in Ultron. But after that, like the whole coffee shop Hulk, as I've come to call him, it just doesn't work for me. I mean, I think, it's great to have an intelligent Hulk, but throwing peace signs, that's just, I don't know. It's like really defeats the, yeah, it really defeats the purpose of the character. And it really didn't capture the spirit of who he is. The madder he gets, the stronger he gets. And I think Ruffalo, he just seems like somebody who is put into the role. Like, he didn't really bring anything to it. And yeah, even in like Endgame, that scene where they're going back in time and then he just like picks up the motorcycle and slams it. It's just, I don't know. It just, there's a lot of cheese with that to me. So I definitely recast him. I definitely agree with you about Brie Larson. I just feel like maybe it was her, maybe it was Marvel's depiction of her. I just feel like there was nothing really interesting about her character. And I'm not just ragging on her or anything like that because
Drag on.
she's a controversial actress. But I really feel like that. Like, Black Widow, for example, is really interesting. Uh, I don't know. I think it's, again, maybe it's the hard part is it's like bringing female superhero characters to the screen can be a challenge. or maybe they just all fall under the weight of the awesomeness that is Wonder Woman. I mean, maybe I'm a little biased by saying that, but again, I would say this is that I did like her a little bit more in Endgame when she showed up. I mean, I think that was a little bit more of a powerful, kind of entrance. Her personality was all right, but again, it's not something that's memorable. And she's only had one movie, so I'll give her the benefit of the doubt. But if they recasted her, I wouldn't be opposed to it because she just kind of seems like, I don't know, something about her just seems like it's phoned in to me. But anyway, um, yeah, Ruffalo. I really I put Ruffalo, but then you started talking about Brie Larson. There's definitely you can recast there. I would say my perfect castings were obviously RDJ. I mean, it's unarguable that he's the greatest casting for that role of all time. Nobody's ever going to fill those shoes well other than Robert Downey Jr. I thought Tom Holland was a perfect casting, and really just he really embodies the fun spirit of Spider-Man, and kind of it seems like it's the most comic book accurate. I like him as a person because not only is he great at acting in the role, he is Spider-Man. I mean, he's a gymnast and he's got the strength to do a lot of the stunts that he does. And I think if you look at some of the past Spider-Man, they've always had somebody else like do the stunts with that role because it's really hard to pull off gymnastic moves and be that strong to do that. And Tom Holland can do that. And I just think he's fun. He's a great character. He's a great actor. I'm really happy with his casting. I thought you were spot on with Nick Fury. I mean, I feel like Sam Jackson, no matter what he does, he just kind of like owns the role. So, um, I'm actually looking forward to seeing what his series is about. So it's like Nick Fury and something. I forgot what it's called, but it's something Nick Fury and something after that. I don't remember what it was, but
There's a lot coming up and spun off from the Avengers. Who's your real quick? This is kind of a little off topic, but who's your favorite Avenger?
I struggle between Captain America and Iron Man.
Okay.
So I think initially would have said Iron Man, but I grew to love Captain America over time. So I don't know. I probably maybe at this moment I would probably lean more towards Captain America,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah,
Me
I mean
too.
again,
Me too. And I find it hilarious that he's my favorite Avenger because um, I'm never into like the leader type. I'm never in my favorite characters. Never like the leader, like the one who's all Boy Scouty and we're gonna do this. We're gonna win and whatever it takes. And but for whatever reason, and maybe it's Chris Evans talking about perfect casting. Maybe it's that actor that just makes the character. I mean, he embodies who Captain America is. Chris Evans, that is, really embodies who Captain America is, and he just takes it to that next level when he's on screen. And I think that's what helps me. I don't know, not connect because again, I'm not into the leader types. Like I like Raphael over Leonardo when it comes to the Ninja Turtles because Raph has a personality and a temper, and Leo's just this goody two shoes leader. That's why I like Batman better than Superman. But
yeah.
for whatever reason, Captain America, he just my favorite Avenger. So
I would say one other thing is I would say I don't think the casting of Thor or Captain America, Chris Hemsworth, Chris Evans are obviously likable. They're obviously great. They look like the part, but I don't feel like these are. I don't know how to really say it, but I don't really feel like they brought anything different than anybody else would. I feel like you could have stuck anybody in that role, and it probably would have been fine. I mean, Robert Downey Jr. does really well in that role because of his personality. I mean, he really brings personality to that role. Whereas Captain America or even Chris Hemsworth's Thor, I mean, like in the first two Thor, for example, you really could have just put any meathead with blonde hair, a pretty boy with blonde hair who's a meathead in that role, and it would have been the same performance. But I think
yeah,
really look at Thor Ragnarok, you start to see some more of his acting chops. Even though it's more of a comedy film, which is, kind of not what I would have preferred, he does a really good job. And I think he fills out the role a lot more. He's more interesting to watch versus, the first two Thor, for example. Same thing with Chris Evans. Like again, he's just like a real, leadership type, real majestic, real followed by the book type character. But
Right.
again, I don't think you can put it. I don't think it's them especially. I just think it's the character.
Um, what were the rumors? I think John Krasinski was supposed to be Captain America before Chris Evans.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see your point though. How those two you could kind of replace them, but they've made they've made the character their own. And Marvel has obviously done an excellent job with their heroes. More often than not, they cast perfectly. Okay, for their Avengers. Now, this might be more of a Marvel problem than it is MCU problem, but we're going to talk about it from the MCU standpoint. So let's go MCU villain problem to talk about the flip side. Do we only seem to be a few of their villains seem to be epic, where while others are just forgettable with the villains? Kyle, what do you think?
So I think Marvel villains suffer the same problem. They are all characters who think they are doing the right thing, but it results in bad consequences. So there are very few, if any, purely evil characters in the MCU, as I've kind of talked about. I also don't find that a lot of villains inspire any real fear. I mean, Thanos was the exception to this, of course, because he was a well-written character, but he wasn't really truly evil. I mean, to some, his intentions might even be seen as necessary or good.
Yeah.
I also don't think that they're scary because there doesn't seem to be any real consequences, at least in the films. I know in the comic books, there's some real consequences. Like for example, I know like Spider-Man dies a few times and stuff like that. So there's a lot more weight. It's a lot more graphic in the comic books, at least. But um, I don't know. So it's like, for example, we all know that Vision and Loki didn't really die in Infinity War. And even Robert Downey Jr., is as great as an epic as his death was, he's going to come back. And they've been rumoring that ever since he died in Endgame, that he's going to come back. And mark my words, he will. I think the only deaths that were really done well were Quicksilver and Black Widow, because it made the stories hold more weight. I mean, Quicksilver died, and then you see WandaVision just flip her shit, and I felt like Elizabeth Olsen did that final scene really powerfully when she goes up to Ultron. She's like, "Do you know what it's like to have your heart ripped out of your chest?" And then she just rips his heart out of his chest, and she's like, "That's how it feels like." And that was such a brilliant scene. For all the problems of that movie, and same thing with Black Widow. Like her death was brilliantly done. I mean, she sacrificed her life because her partner, um, Hawkeye, has a family and kids, and she didn't really have that. And so it really made the story hold more weight. And I'll say this: a couple of notable, really boring villains that really came to mind. That really I just felt was a complete misfire with Marvel. Ronan, defeated by a dance-off. I feel like if you ask a casual Marvel fan, they probably wouldn't remember who he is. Ultron, just a murder bot. I mean, James Spader, for all his greatness, really couldn't really bring life to that role as much as we could. Malekith, Thor: The Dark World. Tell me if you remember why he was a bad guy, because I can't. Um, Aldrich Killian and the Mandarin from Iron Man 3. Do I need to explain this? No, I don't.
No. I'll get off on a tangent about bitching about Iron Man 3. So go on.
And last one was Jan Rugg from, if I said his name right, from Captain Marvel, who's boring, completely boring, and he's grossly underpowered. And I was like, really, this is who you're going to put like one of the most powerful Marvel characters against this dude? Like, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look, everything you said, you nailed it on the head. I mean, Thanos is king when it comes to the villains of the Marvel universe, cinematic universe, and even comic book universe. He is king. He owns the MCU villain spot, and second place is so far away; it's just way up there in the cheap seats. But outside of like Thanos and all these other villains, I liked in the MCU that I don't want to bash on, like the Red Skull, Obadiah Stane, Loki,
Yeah.
Killmonger. I really liked Killmonger because you understood Killmonger's, in Black Panther, is you understood his vengeance, you understood his
Yes,
reason,
absolutely.
and even Hela. Even though I hate Thor Ragnarok, not a big fan. I thought she was a decent villain. But
She was truly evil,
yeah,
truly evil villain.
yeah, yeah,
One of
she
the
was
few.
one of the few. But then you just get forgettable villains, like you mentioned, like Ultron, and I rag on that movie a lot because I don't like it, and I expected a lot from Ultron. I did, and I think it's because, and I'm not blaming the community on this really, but other people built up this storyline for Ultron to be something more than what we got, and so forgettable villains like Ultron, Whiplash from Iron Man 2, and like you mentioned, the god awful Mandarin twist in Iron Man 3, but they're just forgettable. And it's why is it always like a former Stark employee or somebody who was wronged by Tony Stark seeking out revenge? Does like the MCU? I mean, I know the MCU kind of revolves around Iron Man, but like, why does it all have to? Like, look at Mysterio and Far From Home. Vulture by way of the Avengers Madness and Homecoming. Iron Man 3, for God's sakes. Iron Man 2, Whiplash claims he stole his idea or his family's idea. Ultron was Tony's fault too. The list just goes on and on and on, and I can go on, but why are they so forgettable? The MCU clearly knows how to make entertaining movies, but the villain just falls flat, it seems, just like you said. Is it because they recycled the same story time and time again with a different hero? Because you can make the argument that some MCU movies just recycle the hero introduction, jokes, problem, hero loses, hero has to either get back on somebody's good side or figure out a way to beat the villain. They do it, mid-credit scene, next movie. Captain Marvel's kind of like that. Iron Man 2 and 3 were even kind of like that. You have to be careful with the type of villain that you write. I hate to compare, and I'm trying to avoid saying DC stuff on this podcast, but take the Joker. You could never write the Joker in an MCU film. Venom, for God's sake, Tom Hardy's Venom, he eats people. Could he fit into the MCU alongside Carnage too? Probably not. Even though I made a bold statement earlier that we're going to see Tom Holland's Spider-Man and Venom together. I think that'll be more in the Sony verse of things, but and that's part of the reason why Venom right now has to stand on its own, because he couldn't fit in the MCU unless they tonally make a different set of movies coming up, a little bit more consequential and impactful. But if the MCU is truly bold on that next phase, give me, and I'm challenging you here, MCU, on your next phase 4 or 5, whatever we're on right now. Give me all the Venom and all the Carnage with Tom Holland's Spider-Man. Just give it to us, because we finally got a good Venom. All right. Any more thoughts on the villain problem before we move on to what might be missing in the MCU?
Nope.
All right. So we know, and I made mention earlier of the MCU, not having the likes of the X-Men, but they also didn't have the likes of the Fantastic Four. Did the Marvel Cinematic Universe really struggle without the likes of X-Men, the Fantastic Four, and other characters that they really couldn't use right away? Think of the Civil War storyline. Think of Infinity War. Now, I'm talking essentially as those comic book storylines, like Civil War. I think while the Marvel Cinematic Universe, while explosive and able to stand on its own for the most part, could have been the definitive bunch of superhero movies. I'm talking about they could have staked their claim, and a lot of people already claim this, but they could have definitively staked their claim on top of the mountain, and no one would have been able to move past them. I'm talking about like on the level of what we could have gotten if the Green Lantern Corps was able to be in the Snyder cut of the Justice League, or if we ever see those movies, right? That's like the DC equivalent to this. Imagine Civil War with everybody being involved, including the Punisher and the Fantastic Four who are in that storyline. And oh yeah, where the hell is Daredevil been? Like, why the hell hasn't he like showed up in any of this? He's in New York. I mean,
he's rumored to be in the next Spider-Man movie.
Well, so am I. I mean, but it doesn't say anything.
Yeah.
You know, what could be done now with that large group of characters? It doesn't have to be comic accurate, but Civil War could have been giant. It could have been a huge movie. Um, and maybe Spider-Man Far From Home will. To your point, Kyle, about Daredevil being in that movie. But like, what can we do with those characters now? The MCU or Disney owns Fox, so they can grab the X-Men now. They've got the partnership with Sony, so they're using Spider-Man. They've got Fantastic Four now with the Fox ownership. There's a Fantastic Four movie again in the works coming. I think it's late 2023. It's part of the MCU slate. But what could be done with these characters now? What do you think?
I think when you look at the past films of X-Men and Fantastic Four, those films really just don't fit into the Marvel Cinematic Universe formula. So I really feel like those characters at least weren't really needed in this world. Um, I think the MCU is going to really redefine these characters and make them fit in a significant way. Um, yeah, and I've kind of always talked about how the X-Men and the Fantastic Four, for that matter, they really didn't get me that excited, with the exception of Wolverine, of course, because I loved Hugh Jackman's performance. Again, here we have, just like Robert Downey Jr., the quintessential Logan. You know, um, I don't know. I think it'll be interesting to see what they do with it. It really will, and maybe that's going to be part of what the future of Marvel is going to be. But again, I think even when you bring these characters to light, you're still missing some of the greats, some of the tentpole Marvel characters. I mean, you have Spider-Man still, and other characters like Black Panther, and Doctor Strange, but some of the newer like obscure characters that they're kind of exploring, I don't know if they're going to translate well. And I think they are good because of the rest of they have these tentpole Marvel characters that are still relevant. But now that they're kind of moving on, I don't know. So we'll see what happens.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, the future, and we're going to talk about upcoming MCU projects in a second and how we would particularly rate the future of the MCU. So they've got a lot of room to do that, and I think that's what is on everybody's mind right now. But let's have a little fun real quick before we dive in with the wrap up of our final two topics. And I don't know if you ever got around to it, but I went ahead and ranked all 23 films from Iron Man to Spider-Man Far From Home for the MCU so far. So did you want to go first, or do you want me to go on?
I'll go first. And yes, I did do it, but
Thank
I
you.
don't think you could really. I think you could define maybe the top five really well, and maybe the worst really well, but everything in between is subject for debate. But here's what I
Okay.
came up with.
Okay.
I put I put Infinity War and Endgame at number one, and I feel like those are kind of like both a part of the same movie, and I think you can't really have one without the other, and really, you don't even really need to describe why these movies were so great. So definitely number one. Avengers 2012 was number two. Captain America Winter Soldier number three. Spider-Man Far From Home number four. Civil War number five. Iron Man number six. Captain America First Avenger number seven. Um, Spider-Man Homecoming number eight. Age of Ultron Avengers number nine. Doctor
Whoa,
Strange.
really?
Still great seeing the Avengers. There were some good moments in that film despite its flaws. So
Okay. Okay.
again,
Sorry. Sorry.
yeah,
I
you
mean,
could you can mix these up however you like. But
all right. All right.
Doctor Doctor Strange number 10, Black Panther number 11, Thor Ragnarok number 12, Iron Man 2 number 13, Ant Man and the Wasp number 14, Iron Man 3 number 15, Guardians 2 16, Hulk number 17, Guardians 1 18, Ant Man number 19, number 20 is Thor 1. First Thor, 21 is Thor 2, and the last is Captain Marvel.
All right. A lot more diverse and different than I thought yours would be. I thought you and I would be a little similar, and outside of a few, we are. So I'll go backwards to. I'll start from 23 to one. So you and I are right there on number 23. It's Captain Marvel. And just to expand a little bit more, like I said, I'm gonna give her comic character a real chance because I want to just be confirmed that it's Brie Larson's terrible personality that's screwing with the character and not making me like her.
Well, that movie in itself really wasn't that great because I feel like they just phoned it in before Endgame. I mean, nobody's going to deny that Sam Jackson wasn't great a part of the film,
Yeah,
and even the cat was great, and that's what I told a lot of people. Like, I love the cat in the film,
that's right.
but the rest of it really seemed to get dragged on. I hated that they didn't use Phil Coulson at all. I mean, like, you have this character that was so great, had his own TV series, and you're not going to use him at all. He was like barely in the background. I'm not saying make him front and center, but like use him. That would have been a great addition. But
Yeah,
again, like there's just nothing about like the whole scrolls and the Creed that never interested me either. So maybe that was a part of it too. But I just thought that storyline was really boring, and the villain sucked.
oh yeah, and get ready for that because I think they're the Skrills and what scrolls, yeah.
Scrolls.
Yeah, the scrolls. I can never say that right. The scrolls are going to be a big part of the Secret Invasion storyline coming up. So um, I'm sure the Marvels movie will probably have something to do with that. But anyway, talking too much about Captain Marvel because she's number 23 on here. 22 is Age of Ultron for me. That's why I reacted how I reacted. Yes, you're right. I think the Hulk is probably the last movie he really does get a chance to shine in. And it is an Avengers team up movie, yes, and it's got some parts there where that are pivotal parts to the story, and I believe specifically um, Iron Man telling Captain America. I can't remember if he vehemently mentioned the word Endgame, but I think he pointed like up to the stars or something like that, and he said that's the end game, or he was basically hinting to the future. And there's a lot of
Yeah.
important parts in the movie, but still to me fell flat so many different areas. And I believe Joss Whedon is connected to this, so maybe this is why I don't like it. Yeah, exactly. Number 21 is Thor Ragnarok. It just I like the other two Thor movies not that much, but better than Thor 3. Well, the comedy got to me. I didn't like the way they portrayed the Hulk. Um, just
Yeah,
the
that
start of
was
the
bad.
downfall. Yes, start of that downfall. And again, I love the villain though in Thor Ragnarok. Um, so 23, 22, 21, 20, Iron Man 3, 19, Iron Man 2, 18, Thor 2, Dark World, 17, Thor, 16, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, 15, The Incredible Hulk, 14, Spider Man Far From Home, what did I say? 13, 12, 11. 13 is Ant Man, 12 was Ant Man and the Wasp, 11, Black Panther. So here we go into top 10. 10, Avengers Civil War. Or see, I called it a freaking Avengers movie. Captain America Civil War. It should have been an Avengers movie. Civil War. Number 9 is Endgame. I did separate out Endgame and Infinity War. And I'll get to that when I get to Infinity War. But number 8, Spider-Man: Homecoming. 7, Doctor Strange. I enjoyed, just like you, Kyle, Doctor Strange a lot more than I thought I would the first time I
Yeah.
watched it. It was just very, very good, and it makes me look forward to the Multiverse of Madness. Um, so that was 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. I'm sorry. I don't know what number I'm on. But after that, Spider-Man: Homecoming. After Endgame, Doctor Strange, and after Doctor Strange, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1. And then top 5. 5, Iron Man. First Iron Man. That one's tough not to criticize. It's such a good first movie for the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and this was before Disney's time too. So John Favreau really, you know, great vision on the movie itself and the backstory of Tony Stark. Number 4, Captain America: The First Avenger. I just really love this story about how Captain America came to be. I think outside of Thor, they do origin films for these characters really well. Number 3, the first Avengers movie, the Marvels: The Avengers. So tough to beat that team up. It was epic. The first that we pretty much saw of its kind on the silver screen. Number 2, Avengers Infinity War. And again, the reason why I split these two movies up, because to me they are two different movies. They're basically a 5.5 hour trip of the same storyline. But my God, did Infinity War just, it gave us Thanos being Thanos. It had real consequences. And I remember leaving the theater. I saw that one in Disney Springs too in 2019. No, 2018. Uh, Same theater in Disney Springs that you and I saw Endgame. And I just remember walking out of there, just my mind was blown. Now, we knew they were going to come back. You know the Avengers are coming back. But just finally, I felt like Marvel had finally given us a villain that I legit thought could beat the shit out of the Avengers. I mean, Thanos wastes Hulk in the beginning of Infinity War. But anyway, I could talk forever about that. That's why I like it better than Endgame. Endgame, yeah, you can make the argument that a rat or a mouse was the whole reason they saved the world, that saved Ant-Man from that van, which is weird to think about, but it is what it is. And how long did it actually take Captain Marvel to fly um, Iron Man and Nebula back from wherever the hell they were all the way back to Earth? Like, it felt like it took her like 2 seconds. Like, is she that fast? Just questions I'm thinking about when you rewatch Endgame. But
We should
finally,
we should consult Batman and Superman Public Enemies for that answer.
oh, good. Well done, sir. Well done. For those of you unaware, go watch that animated film that Kyle just mentioned, and there will be some similarities between the scene I just mentioned. But I digress. Finally, my favorite MCU movie, and I've made this clear, is Captain America: the Winter Soldier. I really love the kind of political thriller it is, like the almost a spy thriller type of movie. There are major consequences with Shield, obviously. They're compromised. The enemy is infiltrated what you thought to be this safe haven. And you finally get to see although their relationship at times can be kind of annoying, but you see Steve Rogers and Bucky Barnes' relationship, and you see Cap's true colors. Like, he will not go to that route of killing his best friend because he knows he's still in there. So it really tells you who that person is. So, how about, so we ranked our movies with everything that's come out next. Upcoming MCU projects. What are we most excited for that's coming up? Loki is the next thing we're going to get. We're going to get it this Wednesday, just about 3 or 4 days away. Really excited about Loki. So let's start there. What do you want to see out of Loki?
I think more Tom Hiddleston is really all we need, and he's really brought the character to life. It's a really interesting take on the character and a villain. I haven't really read much into the plot. I know it has something to do with like, time, some like time organization that he screws with time, and I don't know, they capture him and something happens. So I just kind of want to let it, play out without really reading into it. So I think it's going to be more of a fun, kind of TV series than anything.
Okay. Now, Phase 4 doesn't have a bunch that I'm too stoked for. Loki's one of them. The Loki, the What If series, although the What If really isn't part of Phase 4. It's just like a TV show. But I do like when they start talking multiverses and different timelines, but as long as it doesn't get too incredibly like wonky. Like, is Loki going to go back in time and screw with certain aspects of the history of what happened with the Avengers? I don't know. But I'm with you to the point where I watched the first trailer. I've read a little bit of news, and I'm purposely staying away from additional aspects or scenes that they release for Loki because I want to be one surprised, and I just want to go into it with a fresh set of eyes and a fresh mind. So, like I said, Phase 4 doesn't have much I'm too stoked for, except for Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness and Spider-Man No Way Home. Like, that's what I'm really like. Okay, let's go. But Black Widow, Shang-Chi, the Eternals, I'm gonna watch them. I'm going to. Eternals intrigues me the most out of those. However, because I do like the Thanos connection with Angelina Jolie's character. Doctor Strange, Spider-Man, and Thor 4, Thor Love and Thunder. has been much more hyped. Um, you know, except for Thor 4, it's kind of at the bottom of those three just because of Ragnarok. But anyway, the Marvels, Ant-Man 3, Guardians of the Galaxy, I got medium hype for those. Then the in development Fantastic Four flick, like I just hope, to your point, we don't see Doctor Doom again. Um, then there's, you know, Blade. Are we going to get a Blade film in the future now? Deadpool. The MCU kind of has Deadpool now. Disney has Deadpool. What the hell do you do with Deadpool if you're Disney?
You do the same thing that Sony did with it. That's really it. You just let Ryan Reynolds be Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool. That's really it.
I completely agree, and I still want to see Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman's characters on the screen at the same time. They've been essentially teasing it. There's Captain America 4 that we have to look forward to, even though it's unconfirmed. But you're going to get a Cap 4 with Anthony Mackie and Sam Wilson at the helm. And then there's an untitled mutant film that mutants are the center of the film. So we're going to get the X-Men in the future. Kyle, was the Dark Mutants movie, was that part of the MCU?
Who knows? That was supposed to come out like in 2018 or something crazy like that, and then it was delayed 2 years later. And I don't know. I don't think that will have any part in the future. I think they're going to start from scratch.
Okay.
Most likely.
So let's kind of segue into our final topic. Like, how would you write the MCU moving forward?
Honestly, I wouldn't change anything because they've done really well so far. I think what I would like to see is maybe do some more R-rated pieces, more like kind of a serious take on a character, like they did with Logan, and kind of like how they did with the Joker. Um, I could really see that being an interesting film. I know Deadpool is R-rated, but that's never going to be a serious film. But I don't know. I think it would be a change up and maybe make it not connected to the larger world. They don't really need to do that, maybe. And like I was saying earlier, they could also consider rebooting the world and just kind of starting over. And maybe, I don't know, I don't see that would actually happen, but I wonder, you have to ask yourself, like, how long are they going to keep this going? I mean, it's been going on 11 years. They're going to take it 20 years? Or, they're going to keep this gravy train going as fast as possible. But then at some point, they're going to run out of characters. I mean, are they going to reboot it? Are they going to, I don't know.
There's an inevitable reboot of the MCU's future. There has to be. I would for me, I would allow the multiverse to pave the way for what you own now. And I'm saying you as Disney, Marvel, you own pretty much everything now outside of a couple of different properties. If you're going to do the Fantastic Four, save and build up Doctor Doom, please. For the love of God, don't just introduce him right away. Maybe you can introduce his character, but I don't want him to be the focal point, just like you've said so many times. And I'm not quite done with the newest X-Men group yet. The X-Men Origins fames because I love Michael Fassbender's Magneto. Days of Future Past was the team-up movie for me. I loved seeing the old and the new X-Men together, and I still want to see more of those new X-Men. I know we got the trilogy out of them, and the last movie was set in the 90s and really good. I liked Dark Phoenix a lot more than others did. And I think people shit on Dark Phoenix, like mostly MCU fans, because they didn't want to see it succeed. But allow the present day Avenger groups to be challenged with these new mutants to ultimately be on their side. I think an Avengers versus mutant war, not war, but just conflict would be really freaking cool to see. Those worlds need to clash. And an Avengers without Wolverine just feels empty to me. I remember when I first heard of the Avengers movies and Marvel Cinematic Universe coming out, and they're like, okay, Avengers is coming up. I made a very just rash assumption without knowing the Fox owned these characters. This was when I was younger. I just assumed we were going to get Wolverine in the in the Avengers movie, and this is before I even saw Iron Man and the movies alike, just assumed Wolverine was going to be in it as a comic fan, but it just feels empty without him. So, and I know you're a big Wolverine guy, so obviously Hugh Jackman probably maybe has one flick of Wolverine left in him, but
I'd be for the buddy comedy of him and Deadpool. I mean, let's say like give him a break. He doesn't have to take his shirt off and do all that training because I think he's probably in his 50s now and give him a break. But make a buddy comedy with Deadpool. I'd be happy with that because Logan was a masterpiece. It was an epic send off for a great character. I don't think we need any more, anything more from him anyway.
You're right. Well, that about wraps it up for our talk on the MCU today. Luckily, I didn't have to go behind me and grab the Infinity Gauntlet and snap your life, Kyle, because you didn't say anything that pissed me off too heavily today. So,
you have gingivitis.
Thank you. I do appreciate that. I am the leader of the Redheaded Revolution. Thank you very much. So, thank you everybody for listening. Please follow us on Instagram at Fourth Motherbox, on Facebook at the Fourth Motherbox Podcast. We will talk about the Arkham video games coming up next week. Kyle and I know a bunch about that, but Kyle, leave us with some words of wisdom today.
Oh, I forgot to come up with words of wisdom. So we'll just use this age-old Spider-Man quote. With great power comes great responsibility.
Way to prepare with that great responsibility of the final word, Kyle.
Maybe some people did. Well, you know what though? Are there really any good quotes from the Marvel Cinematic Universe? I mean, anything that's memorable?
Oh, the first one that comes to head is anything that Thanos said in Infinity War is almost like memorable.
Like?
I mean, Captain America, whatever it takes. I think anytime, like, Captain America's given a lot of the great speeches in the MCU. The banter between him and Iron Man, I think, is always pretty good. But yeah, I'm trying to think of like memorable ones off the top of my head. I already said whatever it takes. That seems to be a popular one. The Thanos reality is often disappointing. So yeah, we could just leave it at that.
That's the only good one. That's the only good one, and people hate it now. So because it's been overused.
I guess so. But anyway, thank you all for watching and listening, however you found this. Oh, by the way, I keep meaning to do this, but if you are rendered deaf at the beginning of our podcasts that are not on our YouTube channel, that is an original song that Kyle has put together. That is the official theme for the Fourth Mother Box, and it's loud as hell because we love loud, heavy fucking music. So, Kyle, is there an official name to that, or it's just our theme song?
It's called Feed and Become.
Feed and Become. All right. Maybe one day we'll get to talk about Scourge, our band, a little bit, and we should get Tim to join as a special episode. But
that'll be the most viewer count ever.
Yeah, 2. Yeah. So anyway, thanks again, everybody. Have a great week. We'll see you next week.